Julia and Jake had only been married for 2 weeks when they received the life-changing news. Julia sat beside Jake on their cozy living room couch, holding a pregnancy test. "Jake, I have some news," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. "We're going to have a baby." Jake's face lit up with joy. "That's wonderful, Julia. I can't believe it. We're going to be parents." They embraced, laughing and crying at the same time, overwhelmed by the imminent expansion of their family. Throughout Julia's pregnancy, Jake was a pillar of support. He accompanied her to every doctor's appointment, held her hand during ultrasounds, and showered her with love and care. During one routine checkup, the doctor reassured them, "The baby is healthy and strong." Jake smiled, gently brushing Julia's hair. "We're so lucky," he whispered, his eyes filled with anticipation. Together, they prepared the nursery, carefully selecting furniture and clothing for their little one. They painted the walls a soft pastel color and assembled a crib. At 28 weeks, Julia celebrated her impending arrival with a baby shower organized by her close friend Clara. Amidst the delightful conversations and gift exchanges, Julia suddenly felt intense contractions. "Ouch!" she cried out, gripping her stomach tightly. Concerned, Clara rushed to her side. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice filled with worry. "I'm experiencing intense contractions. I think we need to rush to the hospital. Can you help me get there?" Julia struggled to speak through the pain. "Of course. I'll also call Jake and let him know," Clara replied, assisting Julia as she rose from her chair. Upon reaching the hospital, the doctor confirmed that Julia was in labor. Shortly after Jake's arrival, she began the birthing process. To everyone's surprise, the first baby that emerged was a girl. "It's a girl!" exclaimed the doctor. Jake, still holding on to Julia, looked confused. "How is that possible?" The ultrasound showed a boy. Julia, through her pain, managed a small smile. "Do you remember our conversation and wish that night at the cafe? We both wanted a daughter, didn't we?" Before they could fully grasp the situation, the doctor interrupted. "Wait, I see another head. We're not finished yet. It's a boy. Look, there he is." The doctor revealed that Julia and Jake had welcomed 2 healthy babies. But before Julia could react, another scream escaped her lips as another baby was swiftly arriving. Jake stood in stunned disbelief. He had anticipated welcoming only one baby boy into their lives, but now he had 3 children who would need his care and love. Julia was wheeled into the recovery room while the 3 children were admitted to the neonatal intensive care unit. Born prematurely at 28 weeks, the triplets required a few days' stay before they could be taken home. Meanwhile, Jake was left to contemplate his thoughts. He approached Julia's doctor, seeking answers about the situation. "How is this possible? How did we not know beforehand that she was carrying triplets?" he inquired, his voice a mix of confusion and frustration. The doctor explained patiently. "Well, sometimes the ultrasound fails to detect everything at once, especially if the fetuses are too small. They can also conceal each other, making it challenging to identify. You and Julia are fortunate. This occurs in only 1 in a million pregnancies." Rather than feeling elated, Jake felt disheartened. The prospect of raising 3 children simultaneously didn't fill him with excitement. As Julia and the children remained in the hospital, Jake stayed at home, grappling with his thoughts. Before leaving, he told Julia, "Let me know when you're all set to come home." It took another 5 days before Julia and her kids, whom she named Alex, Aria, and Aaron, were discharged. Julia anticipated Jake's joy upon their return home. However, their journey back was marked by an uncomfortable silence. "Is everything all right?" Julia asked her husband as they drove home. He shrugged and grumbled, "Just tired, I guess." Upon reaching home, Jake inquired if the children needed anything. Julia smiled, thinking he was finally adapting to the demands of caring for triplets. The kids ran out of diapers at the hospital. "Could you go and buy some from the store?" she requested. Jake nodded. "Sure. I'll be back soon," he replied before leaving the house. In the meantime, Julia enthusiastically tended to the 3 kids. Being in a separate ward at the hospital, this was her first opportunity to care for them independently. "Hello there, my little darlings," she cooed as she carefully placed each of them in the crib. "Daddy went to get more diapers for you. Just be patient, all right? It's not time for any messy surprises yet," she whispered, addressing her infants. Once the kids were peacefully asleep, Julia decided to start preparing dinner. Uncertain about how long they would nap, she opted for a quick pasta recipe, anticipating Jake's return. However, time passed and Jake was still absent. The triplets began crying simultaneously, overwhelming Julia, who couldn't tend to all of them at once. Desperate to reach Jake, Julia dialed his phone number, but it went straight to voicemail. "Hey, where are you? Is everything okay? I'm getting worried. Please call me back," she pleaded, leaving a voicemail. Another hour went by, and Julia dialed his number again, only to find his phone turned off. Growing increasingly anxious, she dialed 911 in search of answers. "I just need to verify if this number is active. My husband hasn't returned home, and I'm concerned he may have been in an accident," she explained, her voice filled with panic. The dispatcher obtained Jake's number and managed to track it. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the line is active. There hasn't been an accident, and your husband is currently driving on the interstate freeway." Overwhelmed, Julia burst into tears. "Why?" she sobbed as her children echoed her cries in the background. "What did I do to deserve this?" Left alone with her 3 newborn triplets, Julia felt an immense burden without any assistance. She was overwhelmed, restless, and fearful. Before completely letting go of hope regarding Jake's whereabouts, Julia decided to visit Tom, Jake's closest friend, hoping he might have some information. The following morning, Julia knocked on Tom's door, aware of the inseparable bond between him and Jake. In the blink of an eye, everything had changed, and Julia couldn't help but seek answers from Tom, knowing he held key insights. "Hey, Julia, come on in. It's great to see you," Tom exclaimed upon opening the door and seeing her standing there. "Would you like some coffee?" Julia nodded without hesitation, her heart racing, longing for the answers she had come seeking. "Well, I understand that Jake's behavior might appear strange to you," Tom said, placing the coffee on the table. "But it's not a surprise to me," Julia interrupted. "Did you see him after he left us? I mean, did you have any further encounters?" Tom sighed, noticing Julia's growing anxiety and pale complexion. "Yes, I did, and we even had an argument about it. I tried to reason with him and make him understand that what he was doing was wrong. I urged him to stay and take care of you and the babies, but he refused. Your coffee is getting cold." Julia felt a deep sense of hurt. Tom's revelation only intensified her pain. Was that all? Did he never say anything else? Tom could sense Julia's disappointment and decided it was time to reveal a little more about his best friend. "And now that he has disappeared without a trace, leaving you alone with the babies, I think you need to know a bit more about your relationship," Tom added. Julia was perplexed. She had believed that Tom knew every aspect of her relationship with Jake. "What more? I don't understand. Do you remember your first encounter with him?" Tom continued. Tears welled up in Julia's eyes. "Of course. How could I ever forget that day? It was a Friday. I was working my shift at the cafe and saw the 2 of you sitting with a group of guys. It was someone's birthday. I still recall Jake's boisterous laughter as he raised the toast when the guy cut his cake. Yeah, that's right. We were celebrating Mark's birthday. But there's something else you still don't know." Julia couldn't help but let her tears flow as she reminisced about her initial meeting with Jake and the way he locked eyes with her from across the room. "Jake and his birthday boy Mark, they were both interested in you, Julia," Tom interjected, bringing her back to reality. "They were drunk and began arguing about who would win you over first. But that wasn't all. They went on to make a rather serious deal." Julia was startled. "A deal? What kind of deal?" Tom hesitated, unsure if he had made the right decision to disclose everything that had transpired that day. Nevertheless, he found himself with no other option but to reveal the truth. "Julia, I know this will be painful for you to hear, but Jake made a bet of $100 to sleep with you that night." Julia was utterly stunned. "He placed the bet on sleeping with me? Oh my God. How could he?" Before Julia could fully process the situation, Tom interjected once more, divulging the true nature of Jake's character. "The thing is, Jake had never been in a serious relationship before. We all assumed it was some kind of tasteless joke. But then he took the challenge seriously." Julia's voice quivered as tears welled up in her eyes. "So you're saying he courted and married me just for $1,000? "No, not at all. He genuinely liked you." "I mean genuinely," Tom clarified. "Things escalated after you two started dating. You got married, and everything seemed fine until he began feeling suffocated in the relationship. Jake was afraid of commitment. He didn't want to settle down so quickly. When things got serious, he started pulling away, and he had those mistresses. Wait, Jake had mistresses? Julia's alarm was palpable. That's just how Jake is. Deception comes easily to him. It's unfortunate that he kept you in the dark. At some point, he wanted to divorce you, but he was too afraid to follow through. Julia's voice trembled through her tears. If he really wanted to divorce me, why did he stay? Why didn't he leave me earlier? I'm not entirely sure why, but one thing I know for certain is that your pregnancy shocked him. He wasn't ready for it, but he tried to hold everything together so that you wouldn't be hurt. He tried, but when you gave birth to triplets, he panicked. It was the final straw. He felt overwhelmed and had no choice but to flee. It became too much for him to handle. Leaving you and the children was the only option he saw. Julia sobbed. Oh my God, Tom. You've been visiting us regularly. You could have told me earlier. Jake left me alone with the babies. What do I do now? I'm so confused. And how will I survive without him? Julia was terrified at the prospect of single-handedly raising her children amidst various challenges. Her head throbbed with pain from hours of crying, but her tears would not stop. She paced back and forth in Tom's living room while trying to call Jake, but his phone was still switched off. Take it easy, Julia. You need to calm down. Have some water. Give me 5 minutes, and I'll drive you home, Tom said. Tom drove Julia to her house, where she expressed her gratitude to the neighbor who had babysat her triplets while she was away. With a forced smile, Julia quickly dismissed the woman before inviting Tom in. They are beautiful, Julia, he said while gently stroking the heads of each of her babies. Jake should not have left. He should have stayed, at least for his children, if not for you. After Tom left, Julia tried to soothe her emotions and breastfeed her babies before laying them down in their cribs. Exhausted and upset, she was too restless to even cry. Time ticked away, and eventually, she fell asleep near her infants. The next morning, a loud doorbell ringing startled Julia, and she jumped out of bed, her heart racing. Jake, she called out as she rushed to the door, only to be disappointed when she saw who it was. Tom, she said, her hopes dashed. Come in. I called you, but you didn't pick up, Tom said as he entered, carrying a large bag of diapers and baby supplies. Hold on, I have more in my car. I'll get it. Julia was surprised by Tom's unexpected visit. She was even more shocked by the level of attention and care he gave to her babies. Would you like some coffee? She asked him. No, thank you. I have to go. Maybe some other time. With Tom's help, Julia was somewhat relieved. She had been struggling with the thought of raising 3 children on her own and had run out of diapers and other baby essentials. The initial days were incredibly challenging for Julia, but her life took a turn when Tom began frequenting her home and offering his assistance. Gradually, Julia realized that she couldn't handle the responsibility of raising her babies alone without Tom's support. He consistently went above and beyond to help her move forward and focus on her future. Tom even volunteered to babysit her triplets while she attended job interviews. Before long, Julia secured a job as an attorney at a private law firm. Her days revolved around juggling work and taking care of her children, and having Tom by her side provided the crucial support she needed. Despite Julia's initial resistance, she couldn't prevent him from showering the kids with the attention and care they deserved. Over time, Alex, Oria, and Erin grew fond of Tom's presence. They no longer pestered Julia to take them to amusement parks on weekends or argued about not receiving extravagant Christmas gifts. Tom embraced the role of a father figure, doing everything he could for them. His love for the children gradually melted Julia's heart, and she found herself developing feelings for him. Julia and Tom eventually started dating, but they took things slowly. Their priority was ensuring that the kids were comfortable with Tom assuming the role of their father. Once they received the children's approval, Julia and Tom had a modest wedding ceremony and tied the knot. 12 years passed, and numerous changes took place. Although the scars left by Jake on Julia's heart still lingered, both Julia and Tom achieved success in their careers and raised 3 remarkable children together. Everything seemed to be heading in the right direction until one day when Julia's secretary called her to sign for a package from a client. The secretary informed the courier, "She's on her way," as they eagerly awaited Julia's signature. As Julia stormed out of her office, she was shocked. "Jake," she exclaimed upon seeing her ex-husband. She invited him to her office, wanting answers from Jake about everything he had done to her 12 years ago. Jake nervously followed Julia to her spacious office, adorned in blue, on the 3rd floor. He hadn't expected to encounter his ex-wife, whom he had left behind with their newborn triplets, in such a successful position. I rehearsed this conversation a million times in front of the mirror, Julia spoke as she settled into her rolling chair. Jake was shocked to witness her in this position. She had changed immensely. Time had truly transformed her. At first, I missed you. I even held on to the hope that you changed your mind and would come back. But as I unraveled some truths, I began to hate you more than I ever loved you. I wanted you to witness my success. Don't you find it peculiar that we meet here like this today? I have nothing to say now. But I do have one question. How could you do this to me, Jake? Jake shifted uncomfortably in his seat. It's not entirely my fault, Julia. I know what I did. I know it was wrong, but I felt trapped, he explained. I was young and frightened. I rushed into everything, our relationship, marriage, and having kids, and I was truly unprepared to be a father of 3. Julia's voice rose in anger. That's absurd, Jake. You were 27. You were not young. You were old enough for everything. Or should I remind you once again of what you did? Jake looked confused. What? What did I do? Have you forgotten about the bet you made with your friend Mark about me? Julia seethed. You dated me and put on a facade of a happy marriage. You pretended to be thrilled about becoming a father. You lied to me and cheated on me with multiple mistresses. And when you felt it was enough, you became afraid and ran away, leaving me alone with our triplets. Jake found himself caught off guard. He had expected Julia to be angry with him for abandoning her and their children. However, her knowledge of the bet, his affairs, and his unwillingness to care for their babies left him shocked. How do you know all this, about the bet and everything else? Who told you? He asked. Tom. He revealed everything about you. And when you left us, he supported the children and me. He helped us survive. He did what you were supposed to do for us. Jake's eyes narrowed. Wait, are you and Tom married? Julia's silence provided the answer. Though Jake wasn't surprised at this point, a different thought brewed in his mind. He realized this could be his golden opportunity to blackmail Tom for a hefty sum. Astonishingly, it was Tom, not Mark, with whom he had made the bet about Julia. You kept it hidden from her, huh, Tom? Jake thought to himself. In that case, I believe I should pay you a surprise visit and teach you how to reveal the whole truth to her. Julia, you should consider yourself lucky that I left, he continued as he approached her. Look at me. I have nothing, a lousy job and overwhelming debts. If I had known you were so wealthy, I would have come running to you for help. Julia fumed. Are you drunk, Jake? Well, what more can I expect from you? It doesn't surprise me. Julia, please help me. I need money, Jake pleaded. Help you? Why would I do that? You abandoned the kids and me. You walked out on us without a second thought. Did you ever consider us? Then why should I? You can leave now. I never want to see you again. And please, don't ever cross my path. Get out, Julia fumed and promptly kicked Jake out on the spot. Jake grumbled as he left the office and waited at a nearby cafe, planning to tell his ex-wife after her work. So this is where she lives now with her new husband, Jake smirked upon witnessing Julia and Tom embrace on their doorstep. He even caught a glimpse of his children, Alex, Aria, and Aaron, playing in the yard. The following day, Jake returned to Julia's house after she had left for work and knocked on the door, startling Tom. Jake. Oh my God. What are you? Before Tom could finish speaking, Jake forcefully entered the house and made himself comfortable on the couch. Jake, how did you find us? Jake taunted, chuckling as Tom grew increasingly uneasy. My best friend seducing my wife behind my back? Seriously impressive. Fortunately, no one else was home. Jake, what do you want? Why have you come here? Jake declared, surveying the opulence of Tom's living room. How could you do this to me, Tom? You knew I loved her. Tom argued. Why loved her? If you truly did, you wouldn't have run away, leaving her and the kids. Jake's eyes flashed with anger. Did you forget about the bet we made that night at the cafe? I fell in love with her at first sight, and so did you. We both desired her, didn't we? But only one of us succeeded, and that was me. I admitted I was happy with her. Then she became pregnant. Double joy, even though I wasn't fully prepared. Nonetheless, I supported her and loved her even more. But it became overwhelming for me when I saw 3 babies. I had only prepared myself for one, so I had to leave. I wasn't ready to raise triplets. Tom frowned. People don't run away from their family or from their children. Jake disregarded Tom's concern and made an unusual demand. I don't want to dig any deeper. I want $5,000. Tom was stunned. $5,000? Yes, I'm just asking a little to keep my mouth shut. It will help me with some personal matters and paying off debts. And in return, you can save your marriage with Julia. Imagine the consequences if she finds out that you and I placed the bet on her, Jake explained. Tom never expected this situation to arise. After a moment of contemplation, he reluctantly agreed. But I need some time, he added. All right. I'll see you soon. Remember, Saturday is the deadline, Jake said, giving Tom's shoulder a reassuring pat before leaving. On Friday afternoon, Tom withdrew $5,000 from the joint account he shared with Julia, hoping she wouldn't notice. However, he failed to anticipate that she would receive a notification on her phone. A $5,000 debit? Why would Tom need such a large sum of money? Julia wondered, growing concerned. She immediately called Tom to inquire about it. Hey, don't worry. It's our money after all, she began. But why didn't you tell me you needed $5,000? Is everything okay? Did something unexpected happen? With no other choice, Tom had to reveal the truth to Julia. Tom confessed. Jake threatened to tell you that he had a bet with me, not Mark. I was terrified of losing you, Julia. I love you deeply, and I can't imagine my life without you and the children. To Tom's surprise, Julia burst into laughter. He expected her to explode with anger, but her reaction rendered him speechless. Tom, how absurd. Do you really think I would leave you over some drunken joke that came back to haunt us? She said with a smile. I despise Jake not because of the bet or his foolish actions, but for abandoning me with the triplets. It's all in the past now. When I get home, we will talk more. Better, Julia said as she ended the call. Tom was still in shock. Julia didn't hate him for what he did. When Julia got home, Tom asked for forgiveness as he tried to beg her again. But Julia still assured him that she had forgiven him and wanted them to live happily. Let me prepare something for us to eat, Julia said as she went to the kitchen. She pondered. I wanted to feel sorry for that pitiful addict, but blackmail? That was crossing the line. Filled with determination and a sense of justice, Julia wasted no time in conveying her decision to Tom. She expressed her firm resolve to report Jake's actions to the appropriate authorities, believing that his malicious behavior should not go unpunished. Recognizing the gravity of the situation and understanding the importance of standing up against such misconduct, Tom wholeheartedly supported Julia's choice. Together, they gathered all the necessary evidence they could find, meticulously documenting Jake's threats, the extortion attempt, and his long-standing evasion of alimony payments. Armed with a substantial case against him, they presented their findings to the local law enforcement agency, ensuring that justice would be served. The authorities, impressed by the thoroughness of their investigation and the compelling evidence presented, wasted no time in launching an official inquiry into Jake's actions. It didn't take long for the truth to unravel, exposing Jake's despicable deeds to the scrutiny of the legal system. After a swift but thorough investigation, the law enforcement agencies gathered an airtight case against Jake. The weight of his transgressions bore heavily upon him as he faced the consequences of his actions. He was swiftly arrested, apprehended for blackmailing Tom and eluding his alimony obligations for over a decade. News of Jake's arrest sent shockwaves through their community as people learned of the extent of his deceit and the pain he had caused Julia and her family. The authorities, determined to ensure justice prevailed, pursued the legal proceedings with utmost seriousness. Jake's trial was a significant event that garnered widespread attention. The evidence presented during the proceedings painted a damning picture of his character and actions. Witness testimonies further solidified the case against him, revealing the depth of his manipulation and disregard for the well-being of others. In the courtroom, Jake's facade of arrogance crumbled as the weight of his crimes bore down upon him. The judge, recognizing the severity of his offenses, handed down a just and substantial sentence, holding him accountable for his actions. The verdict served as a powerful message, illustrating that attempts to exploit and blackmail others would not go unpunished. With Jake behind bars, Julia and Tom felt a renewed sense of security and closure. Their courageous decision to seek justice had not only protected their own family but potentially spared others from falling victim to Jake's malicious schemes. They hoped that Jake's arrest would serve as a deterrent to others, preventing similar acts of blackmail and ensuring the safety and well-being of innocent individuals. As for Julia and Tom, they found solace in knowing that their love and resilience had prevailed. Their bond grew stronger through the shared experience, reinforcing their commitment to each other and their determination to overcome any future challenges that came their way. Back at home, Julia and Tom worked together to redecorate the living room. They hung new pictures of the children and Tom, symbolizing their fresh start. The house, once filled with uncertainty, now echoed with the laughter and joy of a renewed family. Julia looked around, satisfied. These new memories will help us heal and grow. The triplets playing nearby seemed happier than ever, their giggles a constant reminder of the love that now surrounded them. On a warm afternoon, Tom took Julia and the children to their favorite park. As they strolled along the path, Tom suddenly stopped and turned to Julia, his expression serious yet filled with love. "Julia, you've been my rock. I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" he asked, pulling out a small box with a ring. Julia's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Yes, Tom. I can't imagine my life without you either." The children cheered, and Alex asked, "Are we going to be a real family now?" Julia hugged him. "Yes, we are, honey. A real, loving family." One quiet evening, a knock at the door startled Julia. She opened it to find Jake standing there, looking regretful and desperate. "Julia, I've come to apologize. I know I've done terrible things," Jake began, his voice trembling. Julia stood firm, her expression unyielding. "Jake, it's too late for apologies. You've caused too much pain." Tom stepped forward, his presence protective and strong. "Jake, you need to leave. You're not welcome here anymore." Jake looked defeated but nodded. "I understand. I'm sorry." Julia watched as he walked away, feeling a sense of finality. She turned to Tom, who wrapped his arm around her. "We've moved on. There's no place for him in our lives anymore." As the weeks passed, Julia and Tom's bond grew even stronger. They navigated the challenges of their new life together, always putting the children first. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Julia reflected on their journey. "Every challenge we faced only made us stronger," she said softly.